Every once in a while, I do one of these things and start having a conversation with someone like Matt, and we don't hit record until a little bit later. And Matt is telling me about an elephant tool, and we'll get into the real part of the tool that he thinks is pretty cool. It showed up. It's one of those AI note takers that showed up to the call before he did. And anytime one of those things happens, and it happens often, I have a little bit of fun. And I usually just start speaking to the AI tool so that I can leave notes on behalf, leave like nuggets there in the background. Sometimes they're not very good nuggets, but I decided, you know what the hell, let's just go ahead and hit record. So for those of you who've not met him before, Matt Ferguson is joining me on the podcast again, and we're going to have an interesting conversation. I'm going to figure out why he's got an LSU helmet above his head and why he's got his Browns helmet above his head. And yep, we're getting close to football season again. But tell us about the elephant. Well, first say hi, Matt, and then tell us about the elephant note taker.
It's good to see you. And I hate that thing joins. I'm sure there's some setting somewhere that I could find and tell it not to join the meeting. But it's an AI note taker. But I like it because it grades calls. You can set it up to grade anything you pretty much want it. And then it's like, to me, it's like having a genius assistant with you that has a photographic memory at all times. So I can go in and just ask it a question. I'll be like, hey, what were the main talking points Mike and I were talking about? Boom. Right there.
Do you go back and use it?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Good.
Now, the other thing, you can do it from a sales point of view. So if you have a sales team, is say you have multiple calls, say you have 3 or 4 calls, you can group all those calls together, get all that information. And then even when customer success has it, you could have the history of every conversation you've ever had with the clients.
So it's good that you go back and use it. Because one of the concerns I've got with a lot of these tools is that all we're doing is creating more waste. That we're just capturing more information, more data, but we're not really doing anything to create insight. And you're saying that because it's always listening and it's pulling this information together and it's organizing the information, grouping it, kind of tagging it appropriately, that it makes it making itself more useful. Is that fair?
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? This is when you decide you're going to hit record, but I didn't tell you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having a rangefinder with golf.
Yeah.
So you don't really need a rangefinder because all your stuff is, you can go find a yardage pretty much any course that you play. But where's the pin and how far back or how far up is it? I got to walk off from 150 or I got to find 125 yard marker and then kind of guess. Just like you could take notes during a call, but then you forget that this thing just is like, boom, you walk up, boom, and hit the yardage. You got your yardage, you're done. This thing, I can go back to any call, ask it any question, and it answers it for me like a genius.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but that's funny.
Well, it's kind of, so the way I kind of pull it a little bit forward is, you can have that rangefinder, but do you leave it in your bag or do you take it out and use it? So, and sometimes, like I've gone through periods of time where I'm just not using my rangefinder. I'm using it more now because I'm starting to get my yardages dialed in. Like I feel much more comfortable with my clubs and how I'm hitting not only my irons, but starting to hit my wedges. Up until recently, I was really hitting to center of the green or long, whichever one I choose, depending on what's happening with wind and what I know about the hole and all of that other kind of stuff, primarily to reduce the number of times that I come up short. Now, that helped as I started to play a little bit better. And I got, a couple of years ago, I got down to an 11.2 and then ballooned up to a 17. Oh yeah. Thanks for laughing, Matt. And there are so many, we could get into the details around how that happened and what happened and all the other kind of stuff. It's both mental, it's physical, it's emotional, it's all of those things. but I started playing better. And then it really started getting things dialed in. And now I'm starting to shoot pin yardages so that I'm not missing perception on where I think the hole is relative to what I know about the green. And I typically play the same course over and over again. So you end up knowing it fairly well. So I'm using my rangefinder more now. The piece that I think on these tools is I think there's a lot of, I just wonder how many people have another tool and are just gathering more information, but not actually using it. It's good to hear you're using it.
Well, I'm with you because I work with leaders all the time, and they'll have this tool, that tool, this CRM, this thing that hooks into the CRM, and then they got their own spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Like, well, the tools don't really need to do what I do it. So, and it's just like, well, what I wonder, like, is sales, I want to ask Todd Capone this, what he thinks of this, because he's a sales history nerd. Is sales harder, easier, or about the same as it was 100 years ago? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm tempted to send Todd a text. I know he and I are talking next week and see if we can get him on, like just immediately. Here's what I think. I think it's a matter of perspective. It's not any harder or less harder than it was 100 years ago, depending on which aspect you're talking about. If we're talking about building skills, it is 1,000,000% easier to build skills today than it has ever been. As long as you have the initiative to go out there and build the skill, and you've got the right mindset to be comfortable with going out and building the skill and then testing the skill and then working the skill. So from a skills perspective, I think it's a heck of a lot easier. On the flip side, I think there's so much noise out there about what you should do and what you can do and all of the fundamentals. And they say fundamentals, but they're not real fundamentals. Like they'll say, hey, this is a foundational skill, but it's not really a foundational skill. It's a component of a foundational skill. Like might be a branch of that skill. And people will go through and say, you need to have all of these things. So there's so much noise that you end up trying to build too many skills through learning, but not actually apply the skills. So you don't have demonstrated success. So on that side, I think it's much harder than it's ever been because there's so much noise. So I think it depends on what your perspective is and what your awareness is of the job to be done in the specific context. When it comes to reaching out and reaching out to people and researching people, holy crap. If I had access to half of the tools that I have access to now, back when I started, wow. Like I don't know, but at that same point, there might have been too much. So I think I think that's one of those questions that's kind of it depends on what you're selling. If you're selling a communication tool, you will say that communicating is so much harder today than it ever was. And this is why you need this tool to use it. If you're selling training, you will say building skills is so much harder than it ever was. And this is why you need this. So I think it depends on what your perspective is. What do you think?
I agree with you on the noise.
Okay.
There's so much like crap and stuff out there that it's easy to get tripped up into, well, I'll try this one week and then this doesn't work. I'll try this and then I'll try this and then I'll try that. And I think so much stuff just comes back to the simple, basic fundamentals that we've known forever.
Right.
If you just stuck to the fundamentals and picked a couple, because technology works, but like, what are the right tools? What are the right things? And do you stick with your fundamentals? I think that's the hard part with all the bells and whistles.
So what are the fundamentals from your perspective? What are the fundamentals you look for?
Great. Good question.
Don't give me that bullshit, Matt. Like so for everybody who's not watching the video, Matt just pulled the great question to help him pause and think a little bit about what he wanted to share. Just had a conversation
about, I mean, literally the call before you, what's this?
Oh, cool. All right, there we go. Okay, so it was a great question. Thanks for acknowledging my question singing abilities.
But I think the fundamentals come back to, and I actually had two conversations about this today. Now that I think about it, the fundamentals are, can you actually talk to other people like a human being? And can you have their best interest and not what's in it for you? Like,
Okay.
and can you actually help people? But I think that the part that I always think about whenever somebody gets hung up, it's usually in what's in it for them instead of what's in it for the other person. That it's almost a hiccup every time.
Yeah. So I'm going to lay out I just put out what Matt shared up on the whiteboard. The fundamentals for me, actually, hey, Matt, will you ask me what the fundamentals are?
Like, what are your fundamentals of sales?
Thank you. Number one, gathering data, conducting research. So the ability to ask questions. That's number one. The second one is the ability to leverage story. And it's not really about storytelling. It's actually leveraging story concepts. Who are the characters? What are their roles in this thing? What kind of transition are they looking to go through? How do they interact with each other? So leverage story is the second one. The third one is time management. Being able to make appropriate decisions, not only about what to do, but really what not to do. Being able to cut things off. So eliminating things. And then the fourth one, the last one, is project management. So this is building out a plan, calling people to action, holding people accountable. Those are my four fundamentals. So it's gathering data, conducting research, which can be boiled down to asking questions. It's leveraging story. It is time management, and it is project management.
Project management's a big one.
Cool. Why?
Especially in longer, complicated deals.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of moving parts.
Sure.
A lot of people are responsible for a lot of different things. And you're the head of it. And man, people skip steps all the time. And that's where deals fall apart.
And that's it. So the noise piece that we were talking about, a lot of times people will talk about the importance of establishing next steps, right? So it's important for us to establish next steps before we go into a call, our call planning, or relative to our account planning, knowing what is going to happen over the next 30, 60, 90 days. That's where the project management, that fits into that project management umbrella. There's more than just next steps to project management. It's about being able to understand all of the resources that are available to you, being able to allocate those resources, being able to call people to action, and being able to hold them accountable. Not the PMBOK stuff, like not PMP certified project management, but just going through and using basic project management skills. And so this is where that noise comes in. So it's like, hey, you need to really get better at next steps. Well, what we miss when we tell people to get better at establishing next steps is we forget to communicate, like, why, like, where do they fit? How does that organize around things? What's the job to be done of the next steps? And from my perspective, those next steps are critical to help reducing stalls in deals. And given all of the noise that's out there, not only the noise that your reps have or that you have as a leader or whatever your role is, your customers are dealing with a lot of noise. They leave that meeting and they go back to their everyday work. And not only do they go back to their everyday work, they go back to their home life. So they got the noise from home. They've got the noise from the business. They've got the noise from their team. They've got their noise that's just inside their head. So this is why I think it is, in some aspects, it's more complex than it has ever been. Yet at the same time, you can simplify and shrink things down, boil things down into smaller parts, and go out there and execute quickly. Like on that communication side of things, if you're really good at asking questions and listening, you're gonna be a good communicator, or you're gonna get better at communication. So, yeah, that project management one, that's one of those ones that I think a lot of people miss on. They get so caught up in the transactional nature of what happens when you're putting stuff into a CRM that they forget, hey, should look at this as an overall, like, project that's being worked on that has different milestones that we're going to hit on. And if we don't hit on those milestones, we've increased risk. And if we are hitting on those milestones in the right order at the right time, we're actually increasing momentum and probability of sale as we move through it.
I have a client that sells into hospitals, year and a half, 2-year deal cycle. And we started thinking about his sales process like a football field.
Cool. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I even gave him this idea last year. I'm like, you should give all your reps a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Put it in their office, make a football field on it, get the logos of the prospects they're going after and look at that thing every day and move them across the yard line. Because think about it, they're a project manager the whole way through. We just don't think about it like that.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about the football field, I don't know if this is an analogy or metaphor. Remember, I went to Arizona State University, so I don't know. That's there's a it drives Jen nuts every time I say that kind of stuff. Sometimes I say it just to see if she's listening. And we're right on the cusp of football season starting.
And Arizona State's going to be good.
Arizona State is going to be good. I'm optimistic. They've got, I think Kenny's done a really good job with the program. They've got a game against NAU this week. And the other school that's near and dear to my heart, which is where we were last week, is the University of Hawaii. They play that team in Tucson. And ideally, they're going to take it to the team in Tucson. We'll see what happens. But people can visualize this and say, hey, from a probability of sale perspective, are we at our 25-yard line? Are we at the 50? Are we at their 25-yard line? Or are we in the red zone? Like, where are we at on the field? And we also understand that things are going back and forth. Like, everybody's got a part that they contribute to this thing. And sometimes you go backward, and ideally you create space to go forward when you go backward. So I think the football field, any of those visualizations are really cool. Plus the guidance on getting a whiteboard. I think if we had teams using more tools like this, a whiteboard in the communication process with customers, it'd be amazing what actually starts happening in the way that I see it with the clients I work with, and the way that communication happens in the meetings that we have. It's when they start to see their words up on the whiteboard, they feel like they're connected in it. They're part of the process. It's not me just working on my own. It's your words going up there. When I put up Matt's fundamentals up on the board, that's his stuff. We're building together. So I love the football view and the visualizing things so people can start to say, hey, are we making progress? Or are we just stuck? Like, are we going nowhere? If we're going nowhere, what do we need to change?
I had a great, so out of the old football field analogy, he had a newer rep on his team.
Okay.
And I forget what the topic was in the team meeting, but it was what's one, I know what it was, because I wanted them to ask to see what's one area of the sales process where you struggle with, like, where do you get stuck?
Yep.
And what this rep said, it was so off base that he was like, wow, she's actually throwing Hail Marys from the opposite 1-yard line, which means it's one thing to throw a Hail Mary from the 50 if you're Aaron Rodgers, who's actually pretty good with it. His point was, where she's at right now, she's never going to get there. And that was on him because he just hadn't, walked her through the sales process. But I think that's important to know, like, where do your reps struggle and where do they get caught? Because it's a truth teller into, hey, do they really understand what's going on or not?
One of the things I've noticed about you, and I'm being really intentional about noticing this about others, because it's not something that I do very well, is bringing in the way that you bring in client stories into your stories. So, like, I might share something and share something tactical about building skills and say, I'll do this with clients, but what's cool about the way that you share your stories, and it's intentional. I want to know where it comes from. What I hear is, so I was having this conversation with a client and we were talking about this thing, And then it turned into that thing. And then it did this. And then it led into that. So your story is very client specific, client focused. When have you started shifting and incorporating that more into the stuff that you're showing publicly?
As you know, when you have to come up with content all the time.
Yeah.
And there's so much fake content out there, which I'm sure you're reading enough. So
we are gonna have fun with that one. It's just a little foreshadowing. There will be a question about that. Go ahead.
I just like to say, like, if you read anything that I've posted or watch any video that I've ever done over the last 4 years, it's just shit that I've either done myself, mistakes I've been, successes I've had, and then clients, like, we all go through the same things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I be over 50 clients right now over 4 years in 7 different countries. And like, we all have the same problems in some way. I know you probably agree with that statement.
Yeah.
But it's like, no matter what the industry, no matter what people are selling, we all have the same issues. And I believe that's because it's just you're dealing with people on your team, the people that you're selling with, it's people.
Yeah.
So when it really comes down to it, like, to me, it's all kind of intertwined. And I think stories are the best way for people to understand that's how I always sold as an individual contributor. It's like, it's the only way I know how to do it.
Yeah. My hang up with it is this. I'm so overly sensitive to sharing those things that I don't want someone to listen to the content and be like, ooh, Mike's talking about that or that thing, or is this that thing? And I get those every once in a while in the background with text messages like, hey, when you said that, were you talking about me? And I'll say, no, I wasn't. And it's true. No, I wasn't talking about them in that situation. I protect that information. It's one of the reasons, and they may have made a mistake historically as we've been running the business relative to sharing client information. Like, it's very hard for you to figure out which clients I've worked with and worked for. And that's by design. The work that I do is on behalf of my client. It's about them, enabling and empowering them to do things better, not demonstrating what I've done with them. So I have my own personal hangups around this where I don't want to like out or have someone feel like I'm sharing a story that is very personal about them, because I get very personal inside each of those client interactions. How would you coach me up on that side?
I think you're doing a disservice to everybody else with the stories that you have, that you're not sharing them.
Okay.
And I don't think your clients would care. And what I will tell you is, like, if I'm now, somebody will probably call me out on this, but I try, and if I'm going to share something that's really specific to somebody, and nobody knows who anybody is anyway, but
Right. Yeah.
I always usually try and hey, do you mind if I post about this topic? No, go ahead. Like, go ahead. I've had to take one post down and doing it for 4 years, which is,
Okay.
which I had actually, I didn't tell them I was going to do it, but I had told them before, hey, I usually post some of that content. And when that happened, I took it down and nothing happened. But I think that stories that other people go through benefit people way more. And I think that's in your head.
Yeah. I really like the way you framed it as a disservice, because I want to act in service of others. I mean, it's part of my core. Sales is an act in service of others. It's an act of leadership. It helps people move forward. And that language helps me kind of go through and say, okay, is there a way to kind of reframe this and reorganize it? And I started sharing some of them in the context of those Friday fuck ups, where I'd be like, hey, this is a fuck up that comes from somebody else. And YouTube did not like, for whatever reason, they were like, this is not appropriate content to put out there. I'm like, come on, I could see some really crazy ass stuff on YouTube, and I get nailed for calling it a Friday fuck up. So I still have to move around that. And we've been traveling a little bit, so I've missed the last the last couple of Fridays, and I'll bring that back on. But we learn from those fuck ups. And just like Matt has shared, every one of these things that he and I talk about, and a number of other folks will talk about, are all personal experiences. And the beauty of them is it's rare that personal experience has only happened once. Like, Matt, have you ever fucked up the same way twice?
Yeah, jeez. Dude. Learn from your fuck ups.
You do. Yeah.
Way more from your fuck ups. You just didn't. And that's hard. It's hard when you're in it.
Yeah.
But man, when you get through it and you look back, it's like, man, it's amazing how much you learn when things are bad. Then when things are good, every once in a while, I was like, oh, this is great. But
okay, my commitment to you, my commitment to you is I'm going to work to figure out a way to be more intentional about saying the name client or saying the word client in video content, because like everything else, I don't just put shit up on the whiteboard just for the fuck of it. And there's a reason why the whiteboard always changes. It's because those are conversations I'm having with people. And the only way that you can have those changes is if you're actually having those conversations with people. It's not like I just sit here and just draw squiggly lines up here for the fuck of it. But that helped me language. And this is why Matt's really good at what he does. He knows kind of language that's going to help inspire you to change and move. I want to go into this fake content thing. So you said fake content. Do you think there's fake content out there?
I mean, have you messed around with ChatGPT? I mean, it's actually insane what it can do. I'd be like, wow, this would be way easier. I can't do it.
What do you mean? Hold on. So I could go out there and I could use one of these AI tools and I could start creating content?
I think you could create content for the next 2 years. Thing would just do it. Okay.
So I could create content for the next 2 years, set it to automatically post, and just go on vacation and be good to go?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could do that. Yes. You can asking you questions. Hey, do you want to create like 3 more posts like this? And I'm just curious. I'd be like, yeah, let me see what you got.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not to bring a client up into this.
Yeah.
But I was helping somebody hire somebody and told him, hey, ask this question and just see what you get back. Right. It was like, hey, how would you prospect this account?
Yep.
And like, I don't know what the real timeline on this was, but seemed like 10 minutes later, got this really good response. And my first thing went to, they put that in AI and got that answer back. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
But like it is pretty amazing what it can do.
Well, and that's why I think the opportunity to learn, if you've got the initiative to go out and learn, and you know what you want to learn, so you've got the structure and that was why the question around the fundamental piece is, if you know what you want to learn and you've got the initiative, you can go out there and you can figure this out. Like Notebook LM is absolutely insane. Like have you been messing around with Notebook LM at all?
No.
So are you familiar with it at all? Have you heard it? Okay. So
now you make me feel dumb. I feel behind.
No, well, there's nothing that can make you feel any more dumb than having that helmet up above your head. So there, you've already got there. So, and I'm not going to say which one. So the Notebook LM, go check it out, and you could use the free version. You could use the paid version. It's Google product. I can take 4 podcasts that I put together, or 4 of those simplified videos that I put together, put it into Notebook LM, push a button, and within 5 minutes, it's been a little bit of time since I've used it, so it might even be faster now, but within 5 minutes, it will summarize those 3 podcasts, create a podcast with 2 AI
Yeah.
people having a conversation with each other about the content that's in the podcast. And here's content that's in the content that I share with them. And that can be done through PDF. It can be done through YouTube videos. It can be done through a number of different sources. And it's a really powerful tool where if you want to go out there and maybe listen to an earnings call, put the earnings call in there and then have the AI tool go back and forth and communicate with each other. And the cool thing about the back and forth communication is the tool is so strong that the questions they're asking likely are the same questions that you're thinking about, or the fundamental questions like we were talking about that you should be asking. Here's the way it's helping me, or how I've used it so far. I want to know what are the key takeaways that the AI tool is picking up out of the information that I share in that stack. And did it interpret what I was saying properly? And if it didn't, now I need to go a little bit deeper on that thing or go adjust on that. The other thing I'm seeing is that those two hosts will pick up things that I was actually surprised they picked up on as interesting. And now I know, hey, this is something I can go a bit deeper on when I go and create the content. So AI is an emerging enablement technology, an emerging technology tool that helps enable humans to do better human things. You still have to be a fucking human and go out and do things with it. Like that. So not going in there and asking the question, be like, hey, put together my 30, 60, 90 as a new CRO inside an organization and, and then incorporate that into your scenario that you deliver to a company. My view on that is just go fuck yourself. Like if that's how you're working through this stuff and you're trying to impersonate someone who has skills that you do not have, you're using the tool incorrectly. So a fool with a tool is still a fool. Let's not be fools. But check out Notebook LM. I think you'll find it. Like if you just take a look at even like the recording that we did on your live thing, and put it in there and see what it comes back with. And it'd be like, well, Matt and Mike, we're talking about this thing. And it was really interesting to hear Matt's perspective on this. And then somebody else comes in and they say, yeah, but when he said this, he also was talking about this, and they go back and forth with each other. The other thing that is mind blowing is you can actually interact. So you can ask questions, and then the tool will go through and say, that's an interesting thing. Here's what they said about this thing. And it's the tools are fascinating. I think our bigger issue, and this is my order of stuff, it's mindset, skill set, tool set. Your attitude and belief, clarity of definition, mindset, skill set, the skills that are necessary to do the thing around it, and then tools that you use to create leverage. But too often we go right to the tool and we're like, you know what? I would be an amazing putter if I got one of those Lab Golf zero torque putters. Like, could you imagine what my handicap would look like if I had one of those in my bag?
I'm not making this up. The call before you, we're just about to get off. And my client says, hey, I just bought one of those lab putters, but I think it's too short. And I think that it feels like I only hit it every 1 out of 5 times. He's like, what do you think? And I'm like, I have no idea. I've always thinks like it's usually the Indian, not the arrow.
Yeah. Well, hey, if to that client, if you happen to buy a 33.5 inch can work for me, but 33.5 to 34-inch lab putter, and it happens to have a 69 or what was mine? Where was I fitted? I will get my specs and I will share them with Matt. And you're looking to unload that cheap, you know a guy. So, but so your point, it's this, and it is that whole thing of it's not the arrow. And now granted, there's different technology that's gotten better. Part of my downfall in golf was a couple of different things. One, I just didn't have it. I wasn't in the right headspace, and I was going out there and I was kind of going through the motions, and I was getting frustrated, and I wasn't practicing, and I wasn't even playing as much as for a little bit there. But I then got into my head, like, you know what? I am going to play US made clubs, only US made clubs. Do you know how hard it is to play clubs that have been manufactured in the US?
What are they?
Yeah, right. So I went back in the Wayback Machine, and Matt and I both live out in Arizona. So Ping is big out here. Ping used to manufacture everything out here. So I went and started playing a set of Ping S59s that are from 2003. Those are made in the US. I don't have one of the heads here, but Ping S59s. Then so I can and S59s was Ping's first kind of entry into a blade like club. Even though it was still cast, it was more of their players' irons. Like Bubba Watson played these irons for forever. Then I picked up a set of Ping I2 copper.
Oh,
Like these guys, this is a set of Ping. This is one sand wedge, and I've got a couple of sand wedges and I've got a couple of gap wedges that I use just so that I can rotate them through the set. But the set that I'm playing right now are a set of I2 copper irons that were built in 1987. Now, why are you laughing, Matt? What's funny about that?
we're talking about technology this whole time, and you're using that.
What do you mean I'm using none? I use it. These are some of the greatest irons ever engineered, right?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, so anyway, I've gone through this journey, and ultimately, when I started playing the I2s was earlier this year. I just have committed to them, and things are coming. Things have started to come around again. Knock on wood, because you never know when the mental stuff or the physical stuff is going to start to break down. But it was that idea of, hey, you know what? I want to do it in this construct. So the reason I bring it up, a couple of reasons. One, hey, there's technology that you can go out there that's really good, that's older technology. At the same time, there's no way that I'm playing a driver that was made back in the 80s.
Right.
That's not happening. So I've got a Callaway AI Smoke driver that's been built in the last couple of years, and so there are certain parts where you have to make some adjustments and say, you know what, these are the parameters I want to operate with. US made clubs, and at the same time, if I'm committed to doing this thing inside my game, I have to make some adjustments. So the adjustments I made is my driver and my 3-wood are both Callaways, and I'm at some point I may go over to Ping, but I've had some pretty good luck with both of those clubs. Now the I2s are amazing irons. Like I don't hit them as far as I would hit my Apex irons. I've lost distance, but I've gained consistency. And consistency is pretty important in the game of golf. And I keep trying to get Matt to come out and play golf. He doesn't live too far from me, but we've not been able to figure it out up until now. And I know this is as much as we're talking about golf, the story of technology applies to everything. Like you can with the right skill, you can make good with the tools that you have. As you build that skill, you can use tools to help you get better. Would a new set of Ping irons be more forgiving? Abso-freaking-lutely. Like, yeah, that they would absolutely be more forgiving.
Hold on, I got a thought though.
Fire away.
Talk about fundamentals, talk about this and that. But your story actually reminded me of, think of all the sales books that have been written in the last 50 years.
Right.
But like a book that I go back to all the time is, I get them mixed up because of the titles, but Sales Simplified by Mike Weinberg. Like,
right.
You just go back and read that, or read a chapter here and there. It's picking targets. It's selecting weapons. It's coming up with messaging. Now, you can use other tools to help you with that, but like those are like, hey, are we going after the right people, the right companies, and saying the right things? Like that is it.
That's it. Right. It's the fundamentals, right? Like it's the fundamental, and those are your business fundamentals, the fundamentals of the operating system that you're building out. Who's your ideal customer? Built at an organization and a role level. That's territory planning, like building out your territory.
Yep.
How do you look at initial customer acquisition versus retention and expansion? You start to get into those dare to grow models. And you mentioned Capone. And you've got Mike, and you've got so many of these folks that are out there who have some really, really good content. A lot of their content is rooted in fundamentals, rooted in core things. Now, here's the other thing that happens. And you've got young ones, right? So,
I can one.
so 5 and 1.5. Do they ever hear things differently when you say it versus your wife saying it versus one of their friends saying it versus maybe a grandparent saying it?
Of course.
Even if it's the same thing, they still, for whatever reason, it gets picked up differently when somebody else says it.
One of the most unbelievable, like, that's one of the most unbelievable things in life. Like, wait, you heard it that way? I, 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 I think I told this on one of my LinkedIn lives. And I was on this call a couple weeks ago, and I actually thought, I was like, man, we got everything figured out. Like, I walked away like everybody got to be happy about what happened in this call, you know? And I had messaged one of the people on the call. I was like, hey, I assume that you feel a lot better after that. Wrong. Like, way wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing what different people get out of things.
Yeah.
You know, in one of the things, you know, when you're selling, about 6 months ago, I was on a sales call, and I was here to kind of listen, you know. And when it got to the end of the call, it was one of those calls where like the client like said a ton of things and the prospect didn't say much, you know.
Yep.
They asked a question that I was like, they have no idea what they do. You know,
Yeah.
it's so easy when you're in your world to just run through things because it's simple to you.
Right.
But yet you're talking to somebody who's probably half paying attention, you know, and people hear things differently. And where are you going with this? Because it's a great topic.
Well, and here's a perfect example of it. So this is where I was going, and this is where Matt took me or took us. So where I was going is I can say out loud to the kids, and my kids are 19 and 22 now, like, and they're not in the house, but it's still the same crap. I can say, look, it's important for you to make your bed every morning before you walk upstairs. Before you leave your room, make your bed. I can say that. Jen can say that. Hey, make sure you keep your room clean. We're still kind of talking about the same thing. Hey, listen to somebody on a podcast saying, you know what, start every day with a win and make your bed. And then all of a sudden, the next day at dinner, the conversation is, I was listening to this guy on the podcast, and they said, you should start every day making your bed. And you know what, I'm going to start doing it. And you're like, hold on, we've been talking about that for years. Like, what is it about now that it just hit? So that was where I was going. Where Matt took us, though, is in another version of this whole communication challenge. There are things that are said, there are things that are heard, and there are things that are remembered. And very rarely are all three of them the same. So when you think about this communication piece, and this is a core part of communication, trust but verify. What did you hear me say? And some people are frustrated by that. Like I've got folks that I work with who they now have heard me say it enough times that they're not getting they're not defended or offended by it. Hey, we were just talking through that. What did you hear me say? And they say something that's different, and then I have to go back in and I correct it. But so trust but verify. Ask questions, validate, because just like listening to this podcast, you're going to hear me say something and you're going to hear Matt say something. Then you're going to want to rewind because you want to listen to it again and want to rehear it. You can't always do that in your conversations with folks, except if you use some of the tools that are out there, like an elephant, and go back and say, hey, what did so-and-so say in that last conversation? But that communication piece, there's different parts of it. There's different ways that we communicate, people who are communicating. There's different mediums that communication happens, whether it's on a video call like this or a phone call or written. And then there's different environments that people are in where they get distracted because, you know, someone's over here checking scores or gets an alert, or I had an update that showed up on my wrist while we were talking that got my attention. Like those are things that come up from a distraction standpoint. So yeah.
I want to go back to example about making the bed.
Yeah.
And this is a thing that I talk about a lot in leadership.
Sure.
And it's a perfect example because as a manager, a leader, of a sales team,
Yeah.
you saying stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You're almost kind of looked at as dad. Like, oh, there goes dad again. Put your shit in the CRM, or, make sure you're
Right.
doing that, you're doing that.
Right.
And I'm always such a big believer in, like, are your people or your best people bought into the stuff that you want done? Because when they're setting the example and saying it where it doesn't have to come from you all the time, it makes your life a hell of a lot easier. But I'm sure you've been in situations before where, like, the top performers on your team were kind of a pain in the ass or against you a little bit, and like this, and it's just like, it's a constant battle every day. So I think your example of, oh, I heard this on a podcast, that's like, oh, well, this rep did that. Like, it just makes everything, like, easier.
Oh yeah. Well, and before you know it, you start sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher. You start to drone out, right? Like there's a reason why the teacher and the parents all sounded like that. They just kind of drone out. Why do teams have players only meetings? Matt wanted to say that's a good question. Or he wanted to say that's a crap question. I have no idea where you're coming from. Why do they have own players only meetings?
So they can talk amongst it about themselves.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes, like, let's be honest. If you have a team full of great players, you don't have to do a heck of a lot. You put your systems and processes in place, but if you had 8 players on your sales team, your life's pretty easy.
So easy or less complicated?
Less complicated, because people do the shit that you want them to do, and and it's fine. Most of your stuff comes from people not doing what they're supposed to do in this. But back to the players only meeting, like, sometimes they're the ones that has to sort it out. And maybe they do have a problem with what's going on in leadership. And if they do, you better listen.
Right.
Because if you don't listen, you're going to have a mutiny on your hand.
Yeah. There's different ways that information ends up being conveyed, and alignment can happen. And here's the other reality: your players are having meetings, whether you like it or not. They're figuring it out. And it's funny because so do you think we get caught up in too many meetings inside companies?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So now think about it. So we get caught up in too many meetings. People are frustrated with the number of meetings, yet our players will have players only meetings with each other. Many times those are going to be one-on-one. Sometimes they might be someplace else, like wherever they go. They can go out to lunch, or they can do whatever, but they'll still have those meetings. So here's the disconnect. I want you to think about this as a leader. Think, if my team is comfortable having meetings on their own, and they're frustrated by the number of meetings that we have inside our organization, what's the problem? Where's the disconnect? What are you doing wrong in those meetings? Why are they not valuable? Who are they for? How are you serving them in that context? So it's kind of like this, this job to be done, or this piece around the meetings. So communication, I love that that's a fundamental of yours, because it is one of those where, as you go across an entire company, both internal and external, folks, most of the challenges are rooted in some type of communication or miscommunication piece.
Yes. Can we just have a conversation and talk? You mentioned alignment before.
Yeah.
Most problems come when people aren't aligned with what's actually going on.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just a communication.
Yeah. The mistake I've made as a leader in the past is thinking I need to do it on my own. Like, why do you laugh?
Because I don't know where you're going with this, but one of the things that, when I was working for companies, let's just say I had a problem.
Right.
I would look at the problem and say, man, this shouldn't be that part of a problem. So I should be able to figure it out on myself, on my own.
Yeah.
Jesus, if I go and say something to my boss about this problem, they're going to think I'm an idiot. And what? That's a bad place to be, by the way. Because then, to your point, you think you got to figure everything else on your own, and you can't figure it out. And then it's like you don't. Yeah, that's where I go on this topic.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're going.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, think about how many times you get yourself in that situation where you've got a problem. I mean, do you ever see that YouTube video where I don't know if it's a husband and wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend, but the girlfriend's sitting on the couch or the wife is sitting on the couch and she's got this nail in her head. And she's like, have you seen this one? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. So I'll send it to you separately. And if anybody else wants to see it, just send us a note and we'll get it out to you. But it's the wife's on the couch and with her husband or boyfriend or whatever. And she's like, I don't understand it. My head is hurting. Like, it's just this piercing pain right here. And he's like, well, you've got a nail in your head. And she's like, why do you have to come in and always try to just solve the problem? Can't you just listen to me while I'm going through this whole thing, right? Yeah, we laugh about it because we've all had those conversations, but there's the nail in her head. And it's like, it just is right here. And it's just, and he's trying to be empathetic. And at the same time, I'm like, the problem's obvious, but she can't see it. And the reason she can't see it is because she doesn't have a mirror. Right. She's got a blind spot. She lacks perspective. And this is why you as a leader or you as an individual contributor or whatever role it is that you're leader in your family, this is why you're struggling with these problems that continue to persist and sit out there, that you've thrown another tool at, you've thrown another resource at. You failed to get some additional perspective, work with somebody else. And this is where the leadership team really can come together to help solve a problem, or your players only can come together and solve a problem, because when somebody else is in the room, they can see the hands that are on either side of me. Matt can see those hands up there. I can see them because I see it in the video, but like, I have to turn my head to see that hand. That's that question, that shift in perspective. And these problems continue to persist. In just about every meeting you have where someone is working through something and they're struggling with it. And if all they could really use is that little nudge, that little push in perspective, that question, that extra question. Because I don't know who said this way the first time, but it's a good perspective. It's really hard to see the full picture when you're inside the frame.
You get caught in the weeds. You're in it every day. Like, it's hard to get out. I got a story that relates to that nail in the head that involves me.
Yeah. Oh, this would be good.
Every time I open our silverware drawer to get a fork, we were out of forks. And I just feel like, God damn, I'm like, how can we always be out of forks? And my mom happened to be there, right? It happened to be in town. And she looks at me and she goes, let's go buy new forks. And my wife and mom, who went to Target, my mom, or my wife, I don't know who it was, bought 24 new forks.
Yeah.
Never run out of forks since. I don't know. I never thought to go buy new forks. I just always that's how dumb I am. But that to me reminds me of the nail.
It's not just you, right? Like,
if somebody say to me once a week, I'd be like, why do you do it that way? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I know not to do that. I feel like an idiot for even, do it.
The one that drives me nuts, and this happens in multiple meetings across multiple clients and over and over again. And there's one of those kind of triggering phrases for me is, it is what it is. Or that's just the way we do it. Or that's just how it works here. Or any of those kind of things. They're kind of like, okay, well, how long do you want to walk around with that pebble in your shoe? How long do you want to walk around with that nail in your head? How long do you want to operate inside your house with not enough forks?
sometimes you need an outside perspective to see it.
It's so I want to talk a little bit more about the fake content because it's driving me nuts. The ones that get me, and for whatever reason they end up taking off. But it's like I was talking to a 3-time founder about this, and why are you laughing? Have you seen those posts?
I mean, I try not to. It always makes me laugh what takes off and what doesn't.
But like, so what do you think the logic is behind why those things take off? Like, what's the background behind that format? Like, is there some psychology behind it? Is there something to it? Like, and do you think those people really did have that call with the 3-time founder earlier that day where it just happened that they were able to draw out the narrative and by the end of a 500-word post, they were able to solve world peace or that kind of stuff? Like, what's the thing? Why do people do it? And do you think they're full of shit?
I think we'll never know. And then I'll make it even worse for you. There's probably 2 people talking right now that do it and think we're the idiots for actually coming up with real stuff.
Yeah. Hey, there are multiple times I've had people ask me, why do I work so hard? Why do I make this stuff difficult? Why did I not go out and buy more forks?
What? I'll never know.
Yeah.
I'm just glad I have them now because I never am out of forks.
It's awesome. What else is going on with what else is going on with you? Like what do you want to get into? Like what do you want to talk about? And I mean, we just rolled in, so this is good that we hit record because Matt and I literally could have had that same conversation without the microphones on, and then everybody would have lost that.
We're at an hour already.
You had asked about totality and some of the topics.
You didn't know because it real people there that I respect.
Yeah. It was awesome. Like it was really good. It was Sean's first sales conference. So Sean Simmons, who's our BDR, who happens to be one of the 22-year-old that I mentioned a little bit earlier, he's kind of learning and kind of getting his feet under him in the business and in this space, was there. So it was his first conference. So that was kind of cool for him to see it. There were some really good folks that were in the room. What questions do you have?
What was the best topic?
The workshop that I walked away with the most information that I'm going to be able to apply relatively quickly here was David. I think his last name is Breyer, on branding. And we just did a rebrand. We're in the process of a rebrand. We've relaunched that and we're kind of working through here. It was really funny. I showed him the update site and he said, it's going to take a lot you're going to have to explain a lot there. And I was like, yep. I did that. And I had Sean come over. I was like, hey, Sean, you got to hear this. And there's some things there. So it was around the simple parts of branding. And one of the cool things that David talks about in his book, and I don't remember him talking about it at the event because I read the book while I was flying back home, is how important a third of branding is that most of us miss on. So if there's 2/3 of branding, where do you think the one aspect is that most companies fail at? Most people who don't build successful brands, if you were to break it down into 3 different segments relative to branding, what do you think the one is that someone misses on?
Clear message.
So wasn't that it was, and I kind of set you up incorrectly. Like there did give you enough context for it.
I'm not a brand expert.
Yeah. So there's a marketing aspect to branding. There's a sales aspect to branding. And then there's a success aspect to branding. It's kind of the words that we would use from a revenue team perspective. So it's post-sale branding. What are you doing to continue to engage with customers after they made their first decision to buy from you, to really embrace the brand and continue to help push the brand out there? I thought that was pretty powerful, and that came out of the book. But I liked his definition of what branding is. David's definition of branding is the art of differentiation. The art of differentiation. Yeah. So that was really cool. One of the best conversations that we had, and it was a conversation Sean and I had with Marcus Chen around outreach. So because that's what Sean's struggling with. Sean's like, I'm beating my head against the wall. I keep sending messages out to people and nobody's responding. Like this is frustrating. And the conversation with Marcus was really, really cool. And Marcus focused on the fundamentals, knowing your customer and engaging and looking for signals and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a super cool conversation. The theme that I thought was really, really good, and they highlighted it toward the end, is that use of the words or the 2-letter acronym of AI. AI was only mentioned twice during breakout sessions. Everything was more about the human to human connection, the conversation, that being connected to your customer. So those would be the big three. One, the branding piece, the conversation with Marcus, and the human connection piece, above and beyond being able to have some awesome conversations with folks that we know, and that many of the people that are listening know, including Lise and Leslie and Dewan and Dale and you name it. I mean, we could go. Darren McKee was out there. That was the first time I had a chance to meet him. First time I had met Marcus in person. So that was pretty cool.
What was Sean, I like Marcus. What was Sean's biggest takeaway from him?
Biggest takeaway from Marcus was the importance of second and third level connections to gather information about signals that are important to the person that you're trying to get in front of. That was.
I read that as like playing a longer game.
It was more about. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. I think what I heard in there, and I think what Sean took away there, was that it was about really being intentional about the way that you're going out there to do the research and look at the information that's there and available. It's not just about, so let's say Sean wanted to meet you, Matt, it's really easy for him to meet you. Like I could send a text message to you and Sean and be like, hey, Matt, this is Sean. You guys should know each other. Now, let's say that Sean wanted to meet me and didn't know me, but he knew you. A way that he could do that is he could ask you for help to get to me. And he'd have a higher likelihood of success getting to me through sending a text to you, or sending a text to me and then me sending a text to you, however we want to do that connection piece. So he's been too focused, I think, on directly getting in front of the person that he wants the attention of, rather than figuring out a way to indirectly get the attention of the person. And that gets into long game, more strategic thinking. People, this is the one that drives me nuts, is everybody talking about multi-threading, but not really even knowing what multi-threading is. Like, I think we should do, if you're up for it, I'd be up for doing a series, and I'll put you on the spot. I'd do it a series where we break down every once in a while some words that are used in the sales vernacular that people say them out loud, but we don't think they know what they mean. Would you be up for that?
I'm up for anything.
Okay, cool. So watch for that. Matt and I are going to do something a little bit more consistent on this thing around that. We're going to have some fun. We're going to poke some fun at. We're going to poke the bear a little bit and have a little bit of fun at some of the stuff, because we got to have fun. Like, we're all people. Like, we're people who have families, who serve customers, and so those are any questions around any of that stuff, or anything that you've seen from some of the feedback around people that went to Totality?
I haven't seen that much. I saw a bunch before. I haven't seen a bunch after, but the branding piece is interesting to me because it's not something I think about a ton.
Oh.
But I like the way that they put that.
Yeah. It was Dale Dupree. Do you know Dale?
I just know him through LinkedIn. I don't know him personally.
You've not met him. Good guy to meet, and just a good guy to know and engage with. He's done a really good, he's very big on creating an experience when it comes to an event. And that's the cool thing about it. Like he designs with intention. everybody has different skills and different capabilities. I would never think about the kinds of things that he thinks about in that environment. Like it's not my thing. It's his thing. The cool thing about it is you go into an event like that and you have no idea what the heck is going to happen. Even as a speaker, you don't know. You just know, hey, you're going to be in the room and you're going to be asked to do something. You don't know, you hear a little bit more about what you're going to be asked to do, but he wants the experience to be engaging and flowing. And I think that's one of the coolest things about going to an event like Totality. It's a small group. There are about 100 people in a town just outside of Knoxville, a place called Maryville, Tennessee. And so working with Dale, you see how important it is to create an experience for customers. And that's not only the people that are in that room that are his customers, but what he does with customers outside of that environment. And he'll do things like the crumpled letter and a couple of different content, physical good content marketing type stuff. So really good guy. And if anybody's listening, you're not following Dale, and Dale's been on the podcast before, go check out his stuff. The thing that he let me test at Totality, which was really a cool thing to do, and learned a bit about it, was he let me be kind of like the town hall news crier guy in between sessions, where when people would come together and we'd do a session around, like on the branding one, or there'd be one around, Christina Brady did one around improv, and which was all really about kind of what, you get into reframing and asking questions and building those kind of skills. What I did in between sessions is I started just drawing stuff up on the whiteboard and pulling information out of people in a live environment and guiding and facilitating conversations in the context of learn, think, act. So what did we learn in that session, those sessions? How does it apply to what we already know, think? And then what actions are we going to take? And that was a cool thing to get a chance to do in that kind of environment. And the feedback I got from people who had a chance to go through it, and we'll share some of those videos, but feedback I got was pretty cool. So that was another thing that was really cool about the event.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we'll go next year.
Yeah. It's depending on what you want to get out of it, it could be a really good fit. And you'll see a lot of that. The other part, you get to see a lot of people that, you know virtually, right, that you maybe haven't met in person. And so as you're going into event season, here's another one. I know we've gone long, like this long conversation for the podcast, and why I think it makes sense for Matt and I to do some other stuff here. When you look at events, look at these three things. Number one, look at who is going to be speaking, who is going to be, this is going to be on the attendee side of things. So look at the people who are speaking and the people who are sponsoring. If you know those two things, you're going to kind of get a view toward who is certainly going to be in the room. Like, they're going to invest time and energy and attention. I mean, speakers are going to be there, and leaders from the people that are sponsoring are likely going to be at the event. Then look at your social media feeds and start to see who are some of the participants who are potentially going to be at the event, like people who are promoting this and they're excited about going. The reason why you want to look at that stuff early throughout the process is you can start to determine, is this the crowd I want to be around?
Right.
Once you go through that, then you kind of go through and ask yourself this question: what do I want to get? If I'm going in as an attendee, because you're investing not only money, and it might be the money of the company you work for, it might be your money, or it might be, but you're investing resources, your time and somebody else's resources. What is the return you want to get out of that event? Is it customer acquisition? Is it networking? Is it some kind of information that I can share back to the team? I know the people that are going to be there, and I know the thing that I want to get out. Then I can be in a better position to make a decision around, do I invest or do I not? Is it worth it? And then if I'm going to invest, how do I build out my plan to make that successful? And so much of this stuff is public. When you go to smaller events, you can't help but connect directly with the people that are there. If you go to a Dreamforce and you see that, I don't know who spoke at, like Matthew McConaughey, I think, spoke at Dreamforce. Here's the deal. You probably aren't going to go up there and shake hands with Matthew McConaughey. You mean he's not going to be in the breakout sessions asking questions? You go to Totality. Matthew McConaughey is at Totality. He's in the breakout asking questions.
Right.
Yeah, like that's the cool thing. That's why I like smaller events. But and I'm going to be. Or what events are you going to be out here in the next couple of months? Are you going anywhere? Are you speaking anywhere? Are you doing anything that's out there?
I'm trying to do as less travel as I can.
Okay.
Just 5 and 1.5-year-old.
Yeah. Well, that's also the reason why Matt won't get out and play golf with me. I gotta.
Yeah.
I think you know what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go. Was it your mom or your mother-in-law that helped with the forks?
My mom.
Your mom. So I'm going to connect with your mom or your wife and figure out, hey, when can Matt come out and play?
Maybe haircut bosses.
Yeah, that's going to be that's the access point. Matt, thanks for going long. Thanks for having an awesome conversation. Where can people go find out what you're working on?
LinkedIn's my best spot.
Okay.
My LinkedIn page, everything's there.
Hit up Matt's LinkedIn page. We'll include links in the show notes. If you know somebody who would find this valuable, please share it with them. Let Matt and I know that you did so via LinkedIn. If you found something valuable that you're going to use and apply, let us know that too, because when you learn something and you think it, you reflect on it and then take action, you will put those things into practice. You'll be able to overcome the forgetting curve and you'll actually start getting things done in the context of what you want to get done. You can find your catalyst at findmycatalyst.com. Thanks.